You'd think after 40 hours of making a Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise deep dive, I'd be done for a little while, but I'm ready for more. Welcome back to my channel. You can see the title. Today we're going to dive into Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. This one is directed by David Blue Garcia. It stars Sarah Yarkin, Jacob Lattimore, and Elsie Fisher. You may remember her from 8th grade if you've seen that. I love that film, but also the cringe. And it also has Mark Burnham as Leatherface. And lucky for you who always comment about how I watch movies during the day, I actually got this one a little bit early, so I'm able to watch it at night, which is very exciting. Although Texas Chainsaw Massacre is all about the sweat and the grit, and a lot of it does happen in the day, so it could work either way. The plot for this one is after 50 years in hiding, Leatherface returns to terrorize a group of friends that disrupt his carefully shielded world in remote Texas. I did watch the trailer. Usually I don't watch the trailer, but I did watch the trailer. I actually did a reaction on my Patreon. If you ever want to hear about that, the description's always below. The only reason I watched it, I mean, I was really curious, but I knew I was going to be watching all of the films. I watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre a bunch. I don't even know how many times I've seen that film, but over 20 times. And I just didn't feel like there could be anything in there that was like a major spoiler to the way the story would go, if that makes sense. Yeah, there's not a lot of creative exploration in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And if you haven't seen my video yet that I did a couple days ago, please go check it out. I talk about the whole franchise, every single film, and go into depth with the evolution of Leatherface. And let me tell you, there's not many surprises. But I am a fan of the franchise, and I'm really excited to see what's in this film. I do have my expectations set low, I'm gonna say it. After seeing the trailer, especially this part, I was shocked that they went with the whole Laurie Strode, Sidney Prescott, call me back after 20 years, and I'm gonna be the only one who can save this town shtick. I'm also curious because in the blurb for this film, it does say 50 years later. I don't know how old he is meant to be now. It's been since the 70s, so we'll see how athletic he is. I mean, if he's out there that whole time by himself, what has he been eating? Maybe armadillos? Also, I wonder if Grandpa is still kicking around. It's been a while. That guy's gonna outlive us all. He's like a cockroach. Things on my want list for this film, and they're not big asks, I want the mock booty shot, you know, the shot that's in every film. I want that. I want an armadillo somewhere. Love them. Hate seeing them in that state, but it's just a staple. The wind sound must be in it. If the wind sound is not featured, what am I gonna do? Storm out of my own house? Probably. I'd like someone to jump out of a window at one point, just, you know, the whole Sally recreated. That's been in a couple of the films, so that would be cool. And then the big ask, I feel I really would love if they did a pre-scroll just for us to know, like, to set the scene. This one is a continuation after the first one has ended, so once again we're going back to zero and we're going back to wipe the slate clean, but obviously this is 50 years after that. So we will see. I mean, we will see. I don't know what more I can say except for just diving in. I'm actually so excited to share my thoughts with you, come with me style. So if you're gonna watch along with me, please do. And let's press play now. Okay, so I just finished watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Usually I keep these spoiler free, and I will. I'm gonna keep this spoiler free, but I'm gonna have a spoiler section at the end, and I'll give you really good notice before that, don't worry. I'll put like a 5-second title on the screen so you won't know. I'll also put a time code right here that it starts at, so you'll be fine, I promise. So I just finished watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. I should say the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I have a habit of dropping the. Anyway, I can confirm this movie 100% holds the Massacre title. Not so sure about the Texas Chainsaw part. So I guess right out the bat, the kills and the blood. I mean, there was so much blood in this movie. It's all about the kills and the action. I I will say it definitely falls in line with another thing a lot of Chainsaw Massacre films do. It doesn't have very likable characters. The film has a really interesting setup, which I feel like takes up so much time, and it's not really needed, because at the end of the day, these are like splatter films. Really, it's meant to be about, you know, a couple of kids driving through rural Texas, and then somehow they run into the Hewitt, Slaughter, Sawyer family. And this one really goes out of its way to make this elaborate backstory, which it doesn't seem needed, except for making a point about, you know, new people coming in to take over old places, and like this new generation trying to gentrify these houses and these areas. And what's interesting about this film is it takes place in a completely different set that we haven't seen for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. It takes part in the town itself. I mean, I'm not too sure how far out this is from the original house, but I thought that was really interesting because we haven't really seen what the town looks like, except for, you know, a couple of gas stations and some cemeteries. So I did think that that was interesting in itself, but also just a strange thing to throw out there. And I mean, there's a lot going on with the backstory of the characters that I feel like they kind of just like threw so many different things at the wall to see what would stick. And it's meant to be simple. Like, the whole thing is meant to be simple. They're meant to be a bunch of loonies and they hate townspeople and they're hungry cannibals. And in this film, it's very different. So when this group of friends go into this town, they have just purchased. Their aim is to do it up so they can escape the violence of the inner city, which, you know, really links into their characters' backgrounds, which I thought was interesting. Again, another thing they're kind of throwing out there, and another wraparound for the characters. So they do have like reasons behind different things and character growth, and Leatherface does have more of a revenge kind of feel in this film, but it's just very interesting that this would be a sequel to the original, because Leatherface, again, feels very different, as he always does in every film, but he feels different, he looks different, and it seems like he hasn't done much for the last 50 years, I'm going to be frank, so it takes a lot to make him snap, you know. But in saying that, he does snap, and yeah, the blood and the gore and the guts, and it's almost like jump scares. The kills and the violence in this sometimes come out of nowhere and really shock you. So if you like that kind of thing, it is a really good splatter film. I have to say, like, I was really impressed with the gore, and they really take it there. And just when you think you've had enough, they just give you more. And I mean, sometimes it's to its detriment, because it's one of those films that feels like it has like 7 endings, but it only goes for an hour and 20 minutes. So I don't think it's too badly done in that respect. I don't think it drags on for too much. Interesting enough, obviously all the blood, gore, guts, very cool, but they do save it for later in the film. Even though there are small things along the way, it does feel quite slow in the middle, and as I said, I didn't really like any of the characters. They're all very bitter, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but it wasn't really likable to follow them the whole way, and I felt like a lot of the time you were just watching them like hide in spots for, you know, 10-15 minutes, and when a film is so short, it's like, are they just trying to stretch it out for the sake of stretching it out? Hence the, you know, the backstory of them getting there and all that kind of stuff. It just seems like there was no point of it once they get into the action. And when they get into the action, I mean, that's why you're there. But it's interesting because, again, I've been looking into the originals, and in the original film, I remember off the top of my head, they don't really get into the nitty-gritty until like 34 minutes in. So, I mean, it kind of does follow the same structure, but big but. The film opened up with the narration. It did not have a pre-scroll, but it did have a documentary, which I thought was really cool and very modernized. I thought it was a great way of doing it, kind of pulled out to a documentary, which is a great throwback. The documentary had an armadillo in it. I could not see another armadillo in the film. Let me know if you saw one, and also let me know if you saw the booty shot, because I did not see that. But with the theme and kind of the vibe of the film, I could understand why they didn't really pay into the male gaze. It's not really that kind of film. But please let me know if there was a homage and I completely missed it. I was really watching for it, and then I realized towards the end I did not see it at all. Another thing I was really disappointed about was the lack of winces. They did have the wince sound maybe like twice that I heard, but it wasn't even to like a transition scene or a flash to white. So yeah, I was a little bit disappointed with that. And it's also not a very sweaty film. They do talk about being hot at one point. It rains in this film, which is very rare, but it just, I mean, it takes place over one whole day and night, so it's not, you know, I mean, most Texas Chainsaws do that as well, but it doesn't focus too much because it's not following them traveling in the sun as a group. Usually in these films, we are following a group of kids or like in college who don't have a lot of money, which they drive in the van. And this one, they're like driving in a luxury vehicle. So it's a little bit different of a vibe. I'm talking about the colorization. It's not so hot and warm, and it's just the sweat and the texture isn't there. And because it is set in the town, there's no bones and grit and all of that messy stuff, which we like in the original houses. So they definitely take out a few different elements. I would say it's more like 3D, which that's quite similar because that's in a different setting and location. But I mean, it had really rich tones. It was shot really nicely, and it just kind of played in between having warmer tones in some parts, and then when it was night, they, you know, went into the cooler tones. So I guess you could kind of say it was like more white balance to the situation. Sally was probably the most interesting part of the film because yet again, it doesn't feel like she really fits in here because they've gone with this whole elaborate backstory that has nothing to do with her. They do talk about the fact that Chainsaw Massacre happened in that area, which is obviously why the documentary is playing, which I thought was a nice touch. So they kind of like call back to it. And then Sally is in this film, which we mentioned about the trailer, and she's played by a different actress because unfortunately the actress who played her originally passed away several years ago. And I thought, again, that callback is just so weird when they bring in the original character, but it does have to do with the arc and not running away from your fears, all that good stuff we see in these kinds of films. It feels very much Sydney Prescott, I have to say, like more than anything else. I thought it was going to be a little bit more like Halloween-y, but with the whole idea of like not running away from your fear and you're like, you've got to do it and you've got to get it done. Yeah, it felt very much more like that. Overall, blood, guts, loved it. Storyline, not so much. Didn't love the storyline, but it's not the worst Texas Chainsaw Massacre film in my opinion. Even some of the ones from the 2000s, I mean, I think this was better than 3D, to be honest. So if you've seen my rating, here it is. And I would probably put it here, surprisingly. I don't think it's the worst film. I really don't. I probably will only watch it once. I may watch it again because I am going to do a breakdown on the controversies of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I will be doing that with Nightmare Maven for our stream that we do every month on alternating channels. So sometimes you'll see I do a live stream on my channel. We also do it on Nightmare Maven, my friend Vicky's channel, and we're doing one on Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original and this film. So we're going to go through the controversy. So if you do want to hear about that, all the information will be out next week. I'll put up something on my community tab and I'll also put it on my socials. As a popcorn film, I don't think it's awful, but keep in mind, this is coming from the perspective of someone who's just watched 8 Texas Chainsaw Massacre films. So I've seen a lot, and I can definitely see in comparison that this is not the worst. But if I did come off with fresh eyes after just watching the original, yeah, I probably would be disappointed. But I honestly was not expecting much. If you don't mind not liking the characters and if you're into blood and guts, definitely check it out. It's on Netflix, so it's super accessible. I'm gonna give this one a 6 out of 10. I actually think that's quite a fair score. I don't think it's bad. I thought it was all right, but I just didn't think it was the greatest horror movie ever, obviously. For scare, I am gonna give it a 7. I thought the gore is like pretty full on, even when it's over the top special effects. I still thought it was great, and originality, it's gonna get like a 2 for sure. I'm gonna go into spoilers just because I really want to say a couple of things. So here is your spoiler warning. Okay, friends. Wow, was that a ride? I think that this film obviously is trying to point out this is America and really throws a lot of issues in America out. Like the flag, to the school shooting, I guess I can just say, because I mean, this video is titled Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Hopefully that will be okay. Yeah, it was very interesting how heavy they went and with so many different ideas. So I do think it does feel like a lot, but maybe it comes as the idea of all of the violence in the country. That's kind of what I took from it, but I do think that they threw a lot of ideas out, and especially with the whole them going in and changing this town, and then they bring the Sally's character back. I just felt like there was so much going on, and it was hard to have this like solid, you know, backstory if they wanted to create an arc. Obviously they do that for the younger sister, who unfortunately was involved in that in her school. So it was really strange to kind of have that kind of brought into it and scattered throughout the film. Yeah, I just struggle to try and figure out what it was trying to say with that. I would love to hear your interpretations, because was it using it as like a plot device, or were they trying to actually say something about those kinds of events? Yeah, it's pretty insane, and it's just a very, when you really think about it, it's a very strange thing to put in a splatter film as, I don't know. I just thought it was very strange now I think about it. If you've seen The Fallout, I watched that recently. That was a really well done film about those kinds of events. And to see a film like this, which is just meant to be a splatter film, try and take those events I don't know, it's just a very interesting angle. You know what I mean? Sally, oh my gosh. To bring back, and I mean, this is a huge spoiler, but to bring back like an OG character who obviously it's not the actress, but to bring her back and then to kill her like that, it was brutal. And I could actually understand why they did it now, because they have nothing to lose. Like, she's not the original actress, so it's not like they can come back for like another one. And they obviously just brought her back to kill her to put like the stakes higher. But I have to say, like, what takes the cake is the very last shot. Her in the car, like driving away. I was wondering why they put the roof up, the sunroof up, and then her like driving away and her sister's head. Oh my gosh, you have to give it to it. I know that the film is like a little bit fluffy and a little bit popcorn, but my gosh, did they get the blood and gore right. I think that all the characters are so annoying and awful, but that was, you have to admit, it was pretty awesome. It's not something I'm gonna forget anytime soon. There were a couple of things that, for me, doesn't make sense for a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. I do wanna say, what the heck was with the Polaroid? There was no way she could have that Polaroid. The Polaroid was the one that the hitchhiker obviously took. They didn't have a camera around in the car in the first one. He took it and he burnt it, didn't he? How did she have it? And it's not even like crispy or anything. It's not like it was half burnt. That makes no sense. It was obviously a throwback to them in that van scene, but there's absolutely no way that Sally has that. So that was really confusing to me. Also, I felt like Leatherface, his evolution in this one, he was more of like a Norman Bates kind of character. Like, I felt like he turned into his mother. And we have spoken about, if you did watch my other video, sorry, I'm gonna refer to it because it's just in my brain. Leatherface is known for, you know, taking on the characteristics of who he's wearing. And in this situation, oh my gosh, when he does that to his mother, oh my God. Well, it's not his mom. I mean, it depends what storyline we're going with, because he is in an orphan. I'm getting too much into the lore, but technically that might not be his mum, because he was found in a slaughterhouse in one of the timelines. But it's really interesting what he did to her in that situation, because her sitting on that hay when Sally finds her is, come on. If you didn't like I swear I gave this film like 1 extra point because of just the gore and just that shot. Like, that shot was amazing and so scary and so creepy, and it's so sad that they counteracted it with the shot of him in the sunflower field where he like pops his head out. Why did they do that? It's pretty funny, and it's very strange the way that they had these like awesome shots and these awesome fights, and then they would have like someone hide under the bed for like 10 minutes. I'm like, there is no tension that is like flowing evenly. It's just all like boo, 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 boo. Like, I don't care for 10 minutes. Oh my God, that's insane. That's an amazing kill. I don't care. That's an amazing kill. But Leatherface, after he does that to his mother, he obviously goes home and he's like looking at the clothes and he's putting on the makeup, her makeup. while he's upset about it. And I felt like Norman Bates vibes, like when, you know, you finally see Norman Bates as, you know, Mrs. Bates. And I really got that kind of vibe from it. Where in the past, you know, we've got like the Michael Rob Zombie vibe. It's just funny how they choose to represent him. And in this one, again, he is doing revenge for the sake of his mother and them killing her. Or Verna, I should say, and killing her. And it's just interesting that once again, they've tried to play the sympathy angle for Leatherface. He's not doing anything wrong. He's just there. And he's the victim really in the situation. Someone's done something, so he wants to get revenge. Like, he's the guy who's getting revenge for the death of someone he loves. I don't know how they keep doing this to him. Like, he is psychotic. He is psychotic. He is. So stop giving him these like sympathy storylines, because that's not what it's about. It's about random acts of violence. I've said it before and I'll say it again. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, I still stand by everything else. I thought that the film was much better than I thought, and if much better is a 6 out of 10, that's just the world we're living in, I guess. I hope you enjoyed this video and enjoyed hanging out with me. I can't wait to read all of your thoughts down below. Again, these are just my opinions, and I don't mean any disrespect. Please correct me with anything I've said, or, you know, let me know your opinion. I'd love to know. I'd love to know if you hated it, or what you liked about it, what you didn't like, and tell me about the Polaroid. How does that make sense? And please tell me if you saw the booty shot, because I really wanted to see that. And I have to say, was upset they didn't do the window scene, but I'm very, very, very sad that we didn't get to see Grandpa. The town was just so empty, and I don't know who they were surviving off what meat. This wasn't a cannibal film, by the way. This was just a massacre, which is the title. Okay, I'm gonna go because I'm definitely rambling. Enough Texas Chainsaw Massacre for me for a while. I'll talk to you all very soon. Stay safe and stay spooky. Bye, friends.